Alright, the .NET framework has just been updated to version 5, and here at Flying Donkey, it's one of the main frameworks we use for our clients. I wanted to run through 3 key things that we've found in the .NET 5 framework and why you should upgrade your framework to .NET 5. The 3 things I'll be discussing are framework library changes, JSON handling, and app trimming. I'm Matt Grace, Managing Director of Flying Donkey. Let's get into it. Alright, probably the biggest single change we've seen is the framework around how the library is going to be done. Currently, .NET has 2 real versions, that is Standard and Core. And in .NET 5, they're trying to bring this together into a single framework. This is obviously to simplify the development on the Microsoft side, but also make it easier for people when they're developing on. Now, there's been no firm date set for when they're going to discontinue these other versions, but you can see in the future where this is going to happen, so it's important to get upgraded to .NET 5 as soon as possible. Now, I won't go into too many technical details around the differences between .NET Standard and .NET Core, but it's important to know that going forward, there'll be a single framework such as .NET 5 and potentially .NET 6 that will have all the key libraries in one area, and that's what we'll be building on going forward, so therefore you only have to have a single framework going forward. It doesn't matter what sort of app you're going to build, the .NET framework will support all of these use cases for you. Point 2, JSON handling. This might not sound like a huge amount on the surface, but JSON is a very key part to a significant number of web apps that we build, and I know that everyone else builds on the .NET framework. Microsoft has slightly altered and changed the way they handle JSON, and that's resulted in far better performance in handling JSON. There's a significant number of changes here to how JSON is handled within the .NET framework and what the outcomes are going to be, but essentially you can get speed increases from 20 to 60% on moving through JSON parsing and JSON reading. Again, this might not sound like a lot, but obviously within your applications, you're going to be pushing and parsing JSON objects all the time. Calling a simple controller or saving something to a database is going to be using and passing a JSON object, so these sort of savings are going to add up over time and make your application far more responsive. As mentioned, and I'll link below, Microsoft has got a large link of all the changes to the JSON area. Some of them are quite significant, and this is one of the big things we're interested in seeing how this performs in the real world once we get some of our new clients on the .NET 5 framework. And finally, app trimming. Now again, this one's a bit more of performance and a cleanup piece. But Microsoft again is trying to pull the framework together and make it neater, as well as making it perform better. Now when the app loads up, it's going to try and load all of the libraries into what it needs to run. It's going to try and trim out anything that it doesn't need. Microsoft has improved how this works within .NET 5, and it's allowing applications to run with 20 to 30% less size than they previously were. Now again, this might not sound like much, but once you start scaling up the framework into multiple servers and across multiple applications, this can really add up and make your application a lot more hungry than it needs to be, and therefore your infrastructure build will cost more. These incremental changes over time really do add up to make a big difference in the overall picture, and it's one of the reasons again why I recommend upgrading to the latest frameworks. That was just a quick summary of 3 of the main things we've seen in the .NET 5 upgrade and where Microsoft is heading in their .NET 6 upgrade, and that is a single platform that's going to bring together .NET Standard and .NET Core, as well as starting to do some real key cleanup activities and speed improvements that we think will see real world changes to some of our clients' applications. Now of course, any upgrade project is going to take time, but what we generally suggest here is that you can't leave it forever and you will have to upgrade at some point. An incremental upgrade at the time the version is released is always easier than one with multiple versions down the track. Again, we've been upgrading a number of our clients to .NET 5 and we are starting to see some of the improvements coming through. And we highly recommend that you keep your software upgraded as much as possible. If you'd like any assistance in upgrading your .NET library or have any questions around .NET 5 and want them answered, feel free to get in touch and we'll be happy to have a chat.